Well, guys, the last part of today's lesson, the debt equity ratio. What is this one all about? It's my non-current liabilities is to my shareholders' equity. Remember, it measures the degree of financial risk in our business. The lower the ratio, it's more favorable. It means that the business is at less financial risk. It's easier for you to obtain loans. A high ratio indicates that the funds have to be obtained by other means. In other words, you have more of borrowed capital than own capital. So keep that in mind. This one is also regarded as the gearing ratio or the leverage ratio. Return on total capital employed. Net profit before tax plus your interest on loans divided by your average capital employed multiplied by 100/1. What is capital employed? Your shareholders' equity plus your non-current liabilities. Average will therefore mean 2 years divided by 2. Now remember, this one tells you that you're going to compare to previous years, you're going to compare with outside investments such as returns on your fixed deposits, and very, very important, this return on your total capital employed, ROTCE would be the acronym. You would use it to determine whether you will compare it with what? With your interest rates prevailing in the market. So if your return is higher than your interest rates, it means that you would continue taking out loans. But if your interest rates are higher, that means you're using the money, but you're paying a higher rate than what you're actually generating, it would mean that it would be preferable to pay off your loans. But look at the questions in your exam papers and see how does this tie in with what I just mentioned to you. Return on shareholders' equity is your net profit after tax divided by your average shareholders' equity, and your shareholders' equity is made up of share capital plus share premium plus your retained income. Average would therefore mean 2 years divided by 2. Compare to previous years. Compare to other outside investments, such as your returns on your fixed deposits. Compare to other companies in a similar type of business. So you can see it's about a comparison. You're comparing from 1 year to the next year. Did it increase? What is happening? Did it decrease? Notice the trend. You have to mention that when you are answering your questions. Once again, I'm sounding like a nag. I know I'm nagging at you, but I want you to learn your ratios. There's no shortcut, like I alluded to early on. You have to learn these ratios. Earnings per share. Your net profit after tax divided by the number of shares issued. Remember, what your number of shares issued will be your share capital divided by the par value. That would give you the number of shares that have been issued. Now, again, compare to the previous year. What has happened to my earnings per share? Have they increased? Have they decreased? Compare to earnings per share of other companies with a similar share price. Compare it to your economic conditions in general. Comment in relation to the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. What is the performance in general? That is your earnings per share, what we refer to as the EPS. Earnings per share. What about your dividends per share? You take your total dividend divided by the number of shares issued, again multiplying it by 100. Remember, this 100 refers to cents, and the previous one as well. This refers to cents. So your answer here will, or your earnings per share, your answer will always be in cents. For example, 0.35 cents. Okay? So the dividends per share, once again, compare to previous results, compare to last year. Make your comparisons. Compare your dividends to your earnings per share. If there's a huge difference between the two. It means a large amount has been retained, and is there justification for this? Comment in relation to what is happening. Why would companies want to retain income? They would want to retain income for future expansion. They would want to retain income for equalization of dividends. Very, very important. Finally, the net asset value per share. You take your shareholders' equity divided by the number of shares issued times 100. Again, your answer will be in cents per share. It's used to determine the current value of your share. It will influence whether to buy or not to buy a particular share. Remember that if your net asset value is more than the par value, one is inclined to buy the share. It means the book value of the share is much greater than the par value. Well, grade 12s, that is the end of your ratios. Once again, a humble appeal to you. Please, Ashraf is begging you, go out and learn your ratios. Because if you know your ratios, then you are able to answer the question. And if you don't know the ratio, there's no way you can answer that question. But I'm sure you're going to learn it. Why? Because you're aiming for the moon. Yes, the smile is for you. You're going to be on the moon. And if you don't get there, definitely you're going to be a shining star, an accounting shining star. Until the next time, cheerio.